When your bearded dragon sits quietly in its enclosure right now, do you actually know what it is feeling? Most owners assume calm looking means calm. No black beard, no glass surfing, nothing obviously wrong. But bearded dragons are built to hide stress. And the signs they show every single day look almost nothing like what most owners have been told to watch for. 7 hidden signs your bearded dragon is stressed, and what to do about each one starting today. 1. The colour change. Most owners never catch. Have you ever noticed your beardie looking slightly darker than usual, not a dramatic black beard, just a general dullness, and assumed it was the lighting or a shed coming? Most owners do not flag subtle colour changes. Nothing dramatic is happening. Here is what most people do not realise. Bearded dragons communicate stress through colour across their entire body, not just the beard. Chronically elevated corticosterone produces a persistent, mild darkening of the body scales, a dullness to the orange and gold tones that should be bright, a muting of colour that is almost impossible to catch day to day. It has been there for weeks. You just had nothing to compare it against. Research on chromatic stress indicators in agamid lizards, published in the Journal of Experimental Biology, found that corticosterone elevation produced measurable changes in skin coloration within 48 hours, before any behavioral stress indicator appeared. The color changed first. Most owners never know to look. From today, photograph your beardie once a week in the same spot, under the same lighting, not to post, to compare. A side-by-side across 4 weeks will show colour shifts that daily observation misses entirely. And if this is already changing what you thought you knew about your beardie, subscribe right now. We decode the real science behind everything your reptile does every week. But the next sign is the one that gets misread most often, because it looks like the opposite of stress. 2. Your beardie is not calm during handling, it is shutting down. Have you ever picked up your beardie and felt it go very still and not struggling, just completely motionless, and felt reassured that it was relaxed? Most owners read stillness as contentment. Here is what is actually happening. Tonic immobility is a documented fear response in reptiles in which the animal becomes completely still and non-reactive. It is not relaxation, it is a survival strategy. The beardie's nervous system has assessed the situation as threatening and defaulted to the behaviour most likely to keep it alive when escape is impossible. It looks identical to calm from the outside. It is not calm from the inside. Research on tonic immobility in captive agamid lizards confirmed it is associated with elevated corticosterone and suppressed immune function, the physiological signature of a stressed animal, not a calm one. Run a 3-point check during every handling session. 1. Is the body loose and heavy or rigid and braced? 2. Is the breathing normal or dramatically slowed? 3. When you set the beardie down, does it immediately activate or stay still for several seconds? Tonic immobility activates on release. Genuine rest does not. Learning this difference is the most important skill in bearded dragon handling. And there is one sign on this list that most owners create by accident through something they do every day thinking it is enriching their beardie's life. We will get to that last. 3. Appetite reduction that is so gradual you never see it start. Have you ever noticed your beardie eating slightly less than usual over several weeks? Not a dramatic refusal, just gradually less, and assumed it was a seasonal shift or the beardie being finicky. Most owners do not flag gradual reduction. The beardie still eats, just a little less. Here is what most people do not realise. Appetite suppression is one of the earliest indicators of chronic stress in bearded dragons. Not sudden refusal, that is obvious. Gradual reduction so slow no single day stands out. Corticosterone directly suppresses digestive efficiency and appetite. By the time most owners notice the trend, it has been building for a month. A 2019 study on chronic stress indicators in captive agamid lizards found that appetite suppression preceded behavioural stress displays by an average of 18 days. The food reduction came first, the visible signs came later. Owners who tracked feeding volume identified the problem weeks earlier than those who only noted complete refusals. Keep a simple feeding log from today. Date, what was offered, roughly how much was eaten. 4 weeks of data will show a pattern that daily observation cannot. A gradual downward trend is a signal worth investigating. The log is the difference between catching something early and catching it late. 4. The basking behavior that tells you more than anything else. Have you ever noticed your beardie spending less time in its basking spots and choosing cooler areas, moving away from the heat earlier than normal, and assumed it was simply warm enough without the full session? Most owners do not flag reduced basking. Here is what nobody tells you. A beardie avoiding its basking spot is a beardie whose thermoregulatory behaviour has been disrupted, and thermoregulatory disruption in reptiles is almost always stress-driven. When a stressed beardie reduces basking, it is not because it is warm enough. It is because the basking spot has become associated with something aversive, handling that follows basking, an exposed enclosure position, a thermal gradient that is slightly off. And the beardie is avoiding the association rather than the temperature. Research on thermoregulatory behaviour in stressed agamid lizards found that chronically stressed animals showed reduced basking duration and preferred cooler zones, compared to unstressed animals in identical thermal environments. The temperature was available. The beardie was choosing not to access it. Check 3 things. Is the basking spot in an exposed position where the beardie feels vulnerable? Does handling consistently follow basking, teaching the beardie that basking predicts being picked up? Is the thermal gradient dropping off too quickly from the surface? Address these before assuming the beardie is simply warm enough. 5. The shedding pattern. Most owners treat with humidity when the cause is cortisol. Have you ever had your beardie shed unevenly, patches that do not come off cleanly, retain shed on toes or tail tip, and reach straight for more humidity and more baths? Most owners treat difficult sheds as a husbandry problem. Here is what most people do not realise. Disectasis, incomplete shedding, is frequently a symptom of chronic stress rather than a primary husbandry failure. The shedding process is regulated in part by corticosterone. When stress hormones are chronically elevated, the hormonal cascade that initiates and completes a clean shed is disrupted. More humidity in a stressed beardie produces marginal improvement. Addressing the stress produces full resolution. Treating the shed without treating the cause is treating a symptom. Research on endocrine disruption and ecdysis in captive lizards confirmed that chronically stressed animals showed significantly higher rates of disecdysis than animals with equivalent husbandry in lower stress environments. If your beardie regularly has difficult sheds, assess the stress environment before adjusting humidity. Work through enclosure size, thermal gradient, handling frequency, and light cycle consistency. Fix one variable at a time over 4 weeks and track whether shed quality improves. If stress was the driver, it will resolve. If humidity was genuinely the cause, it will not. 6. The sleep timing. Your beardie uses to tell you something is wrong. Have you ever noticed your beardie retreating to its hide or settling into the cool end of the enclosure well before the lights have gone off and assumed it was just tired or that the season was affecting it? Most owners do not flag early sleep. The beardie is resting. Here is what is actually happening. Premature sleep onset and retreating and going inactive before the light cycle ends is a documented behavioural indicator of chronic stress. A healthy bearded dragon in an optimal environment is active during its light cycle. A beardie that consistently retreats early has a nervous system running in a conserved energy state, pulling back from activity to reduce the metabolic cost of chronic stress arousal. It is not tired, it is depleted. Research on activity budget disruption in captive reptiles found that premature retreat and early sleep onset correlated significantly with elevated corticosterone across multiple agamid species, appearing on average 2 weeks. Before other visible stress signs. Note what time your beardie retreats tonight and for the next 7 days. If it is consistently 1 to 2 hours before lights out, something is accumulating. Track this over 2 weeks and compare against any recent changes to routine, handling frequency, or enclosure setup. The timing will tell you whether things are improving or getting worse. 7. The thing you do every day, thinking it helps. And why it is making things worse. Have you been regularly taking your bearded dragon out of its enclosure, carried through different rooms shown to visitors, introduced to new objects and environments because you read that enrichment and socialization are important for bearded dragon well-being? Most owners who do this are doing it out of genuine care. Here is what most people never find out, And this is what I mentioned at the start. Unstructured exposure to too many novel environments without adequate recovery time is one of the most common sources of chronic low-grade stress in well-cared-for bearded dragons. The owners who stress their beardies most are frequently the ones who love them most. They are giving their beardie more novel experience than its nervous system can process before the next one arrives. Research on environmental novelty and stress response in captive agamid lizards found that bearded dragons exposed to high-frequency novel environment sessions showed chronically elevated corticosterone that did not return to baseline between sessions. The stress was accumulating. Each new experience added to a load that was never fully resolved. These beardies showed every sign on this list: colour changes, reduced appetite, disrupted basking, early sleep onset, despite receiving what their owners considered excellent care. The enrichment is not wrong. The frequency and recovery time are. One novel experience per session, one session every 2 to 3 days, always ending in the familiar enclosure, always with 24 hours of normal routine before the next new thing. Enrichment without recovery does not build confidence. It builds a cumulative stress load that shows up in every sign on this list. Go back through all 7. The colour trending duller for weeks without triggering an alarm. The stillness during handling that was shut down, not relaxation. The appetite reducing so gradually no single day stood out. The basking spot being avoided because of what basking had come to predict. The shed that kept failing because the cause was cortisol, not humidity. The early retreat before lights out that nobody identified as a signal. And the enrichment that was genuinely well-intentioned and genuinely stressful, because love without recovery time looks like chronic overload to a nervous system that needs predictability to heal. Your beardie has been communicating all of this. Now you know the language.